Hello everyone and welcome to another incredible game, also from round 3 of this year's FIDE World Cup. It is Praggnanandhaa versus Robert Hovhannisyan, and it is a game that is humanly impossible to calculate. It's pretty standard. That's what Prague plays. That's the way he plays chess, but it's, he plays positions that no one can calculate. Even watching these positions with an engine, you will struggle to figure out what's what. It just makes zero sense. You'll see what I mean by this. I will show some two really disgusting lines that you're gonna have to wash your face after you see them. But before we check it out, as today is a rest day at the FIDE World Cup, it is not a rest day for us, the chess connoisseurs. First link in the description below. Join the Lotus Chess November Arena and have some fun. We're gonna play some chess. We're gonna talk a lot about everything, about art, history, sports, probably not, but who knows. And it's gonna be fun as usual. Let's see who the best player is and who the best improver is. And it's also gonna serve as a big warm up for the December Lotus Arena, which is of course happening in December. So join and let's play some chess. Now, getting back to the game, prepare to be amazed. Prague with white opens with pawn to e4. And this is the second game. The first game ended in a draw. Pawn to e5, we have knight f3, knight to f6, and pawn to d4. Okay, we have the Steinitz attack against the Petrov. Knight captures on e4 and the bishop to d3. Pawn to d5 and knight captures on e5. So this is all standard stuff, the symmetrical center variation of the Steinitz attack against the Petrov. Knight d7, we have castles, and knight captures on e5. D captures, knight c5, attacks the bishop, and bishop to e2. Of course, you would like to preserve the bishop pair for as long as possible. Bishop to e7 and bishop to e3. We have castles kingside and pawn to c3. Sometimes f4 is played here. I think it's even more popular, but c3 and pawn to b6. And the position has been reached before. Javokir Sindarov had it against Vladimir Fedoseev, and in the game, Sindarov played pawn to c4, where Fedoseev beat him. Pawn to c4, bishop to e6, and the game continued with some c captures on d5. All in all, it was pretty good for black. Here we have knight to d2 by Praggnanandhaa, and it is now, as of move 11, that we have a completely new game. It's the top move recommended by the engine, so one might even say that Prague is still well within his preparation, as he does have full time on the clock. Okay, bishop to b7, nicely continuing development, f4 and pawn to f6, going after Prague's strong center right away. And you could play many moves here, but being a strong player that Prague is 27-68, you don't get to be that strong without knowing when to execute pawn to b4. Now, what I love most about this game, maybe not most, but most/second most, is that b4 doesn't win the game directly, but it does, when you actually play it over the board. What I mean by this is that only good move for black is knight e6, but knight e6 is incredibly difficult to calculate, plus it just looks weird. And also you have to calculate f5, which no man should do. Point being that after pawn to d4, you will play f captures on e6, then d captures on e3, then knight to c4. Okay, we'll go after the pawn. Let's say f captures, let's say queen to d7, let's say rook captures on f1, or even rook f2 is possible. Also, crazy stuff. Captures, let's say queen captures on d7, e captures on d7, captures on f2 with check, king captures, rook to f8 with check, king to g1, bishop to f6, you save the e-pawn, and you get something like this. White is down, white is not down a pawn. It's actually equal material, and white has a passed pawn on d7, and after rook to d8, you get something like this. Whether this is a strength or a weakness, whether black will be able to win it. All in all, black does have the bishop pair, and the position is equal. If anything, one small slip up and black is better. But yeah, it's not an easy move to make, knight e6. So knight to e4 was played, which at this level is a losing move. And all made possible by playing pawn to b4. And the reason for that is that now Prague captures on e4, d captures, look at this, queen b3 check, a free tempo for the white queen, king to h8, and now another free tempo, rook d1, attacking the black queen, queen to e8, and now pawn to e6. And if Prague is allowed to push pawn to f5, then Robert will be choking on this e6 bone for the rest of the game. So, of course, he stops at pawn to f5, and now Prague goes rook to d7. And this is where the engine sorcery starts. Look at this, bishop to c8. What do you play here? It's such a disgusting position, but it's also incredibly funny. What would you play here as white? You know, just you don't have to calculate it. Just what does your spidey sense tell you? What do you play? Believe it or not, it's not rook captures on c7, even though that's perfectly fine. You're welcome to grab a pawn, nothing wrong with that. Pragg actually played rook f to d1, which is also quite beautiful, but it's bishop to h5. And the reason for that is that you are not allowed to play g6. Point being that after g6, you can go rook captures on c7, and now after the bishop is captured, bishop d4 check. And there are two ways you could go about this. If you go bishop to f6, which looks like a possibility, then e7. And okay, you attack the rook, bishop captures on d4, comes with check, c captures rook f7, and now queen d5. The rook on a8 is undefended, so black will play bishop to a6, attack the rook on f1, and now rook f to c1, and there really isn't all that much black can do here. Whatever you play, let's say rook b8, look at this, queen e5 check, and after king to g8, this is dead loss. d5, d6, d7, there's nothing black can do about any of this. So what you would have to do after this bishop to d4 check is not bishop to f6, rather you would have to go king to g8, and now comes rook to d1. You know, the very difficult move to decide on, sort of it's an Andersen move, if you will, but still not a move for black. Black's position is just disgusting. For example, rook b8, queen d5, just winning more space. Pawn to a5, pawn to b5. Black has no moves here. It's impossible to even think of a move here for black. So that's what kind of terrible position this is. So that's why after bishop to h5, we go back at the beginning of our hypothetical line. You cannot play g6, you just have to play queen captures on h5, and after rook captures on e7, you get this position where you probably also capture the c7 pawn, and the white just enjoys this position, having a pass pawn on e6, and you know, bishop is coming to d4. It's just a much better position for white. But Pragg doesn't like it. He doesn't play bishop to h5. He goes rook f to d1. Like I said, capturing a pawn, perfectly fine, but he goes rook f to d1, and now it's kind of possible to take advantage of this, but Robert doesn't. He plays bishop captures on d7. And by advantage, I mean maybe a slight improvement with bishop to d6, because now you're threatening to actually win that pawn on e6, so you're going to have to play rook captures on d6, and after captures, rook captures on d6, but now it's a little bit different. Rook f6, you add a third attacker to the pawn, and after bishop to c4, you get queen to e7, and the rook overstays its welcome on the 6th rank. You have to go back, and then the pawn is lost, because if you play rook to c6, then bishop b7 traps the rook, and that's it. Black just wins. So a slight improvement definitely to the immediate bishop captures on d7. But okay, bishop captures on d7. We have rook captures on d7, and now pawn to c5. We have pawn to b5. Pragg wins more space on the queen side, and this is where the position comes alive once again. Bishop f6, pawn to a4. We have queen to g6, and now pawn to a5. Rook f to e8, and pawn to a6. And the reason this is a mistake is because now it is Robert who has a move that no one would ever think of, like Pragg had that bishop to h5 move. What would you play here? It's I mean, it's disgustingly difficult to see this, but, you know, that's why we love chess, you know, to solve positions. What would you play here as black? It's the incredible bishop to h4. And it makes zero sense, I know. But, of course, you cannot play g3, as that bishop just captures, and black just wins. You also capture the bishop on e3, and that's it. White's position is ruined. So the point is, what do you play here? Now the queen is actually threatening to capture that pawn on e6. Best is to defend it. Bishop to c4, but now the tactics actually work in black's favor. And again, impossible to see this, but the point of bishop to h4 is to actually prevent king from touching the f2 square. And now look at this. You simply get rook e to d8. You go after the rook. And now this bishop to d5 line, which works in pretty much all of the other cases except when the bishop is on h4, doesn't work. Rook captures on e7, bishop captures on a8. And now look at this. Queen captures on e6. You sacrifice the queen. Or rather, it doesn't matter if white captures it or not. You're just now up too much material, and now it's black who has a passed pawn on e4. Because if the queen is captured, rook d1 is checkmate, compliments of the bishop on h4. So yeah, that's the other disgusting angel line that I was referring to at the beginning of the video. But I mean, so interesting, poetic even. Bishop to h5 missed by Pragg, bishop to h4 missed by Robert. That's chess for you. So instead, rook to e7 was played, and now queen to d5. Okay, the rook is hanging, we have rook to b8, and now rook captures on e7, bishop captures, and queen d7 with a double attack on the bishop and on the a7 pawn. So queen to e8 defending, and queen captures on a7. Now Pragg creates another pass pawn, and there's now a pass pawn on a6 and on e6. A pass pawn on the 6th rank is already very scary. 2 pass pawns on the 6th rank, that's, game changing. So, okay, queen to d8, trying to do something, but not all that much you can do here. We have king to f2, Pragg just improves his position, bishop to d6, and queen to f7. We have queen to h4, king to f1, even allowing queen captures on h2, because if you go king to g1, then you run into checkmate. Queen e1 check, bishop to f1, only move, queen captures on e3, king to h1, and queen f2. There is no way to avoid checkmate. So after queen to h4, king to f1, you have to allow the capture, but first rook f8, queen to b7, and now queen captures on h2, followed by pawn to e7. Rook to g8, and what is the simplest way to win this for Pragg? Yes, you can advance the pawn, but also just e8 queen. You get the rook in range of the white queen, and that's all there is. Rook captures on e8, Pragg played queen to d7 with a double attack on the rook and on the bishop. Rook to g8, and now queen captures on d6. Now it's 2 bishops versus a rook, plus also the passed a pawn is now marching forward, and it's a matter of a few more moves to be played. Queen g3, we have queen to d2, just ensuring there's zero counterplay. Usually, it's not the best idea to prevent your opponent from having any counterplay. I mean, it is if you can achieve it, but more often than not, it is not achievable. You have to give them a little bit of something because it's not really anything, and then you can do your stuff. But yeah, this position is so good that Pragg can actually eliminate all of Robert's counterplay. Queen to h4, we have bishop to c4 attacking the rook, rook to d8 attacking the queen, and bishop to d5. Queen to h1 with check, we have bishop to g1, and queen to h6 followed by pawn to a7. Queen to d6 now threatening to win the bishop on d5, but Pragg says that bishop is not really hanging, just plays bishop to e3, and he was in this position on move 42 that Robert Hovhannisyan resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. a8 queen is coming, and of course if you capture the bishop, then just captures a8. You can even bring a rook into the game with check, rook d8, and rook captures will be checkmate. So incredible game, incredibly difficult to calculate that bishop to h5 and bishop to h4 moves. Plus also the Zwischenzug, the bishop to d6 move, not an easy one to spot. I mean, so many tricky ideas missed, and Praggnanandhaa goes to round 4. He faces none other than Daniil Dubov. If you haven't seen the previous video, Daniil Dubov versus Georg Mayer, do check it out. It's, beautifully played. And also we discuss everything, who defeated who is facing who. And yes, Dubov is facing Praggnanandhaa in round 4, and it's gonna be awesome. Against Dubov, you will not be able to miss chances like bishop to h5, as I imagine Dubov will punish that. But also you have to be ready for moves like bishop to h5. So I can't wait for that matchup. Also very much looking forward to Arjun versus Peter Leko. Also an incredible matchup, plus all of the other matchups. I mean, everything is incredible, and I'm very much looking forward to covering it. But before that, first link in the description below, join the arena tomorrow. Today is the rest day, and let's brawl it out. So I hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Deepak Gangadaran, Udo Brandt, Leo Teune, Loomis, Edis Fair, and David Gasparian for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And remember, first link in the description below. See you today.